This is how I equalize voiceovers in DaVinci Resolve, although these tips will also work in other programs like Premiere Pro or Adobe Audition. So the project I have open is a tutorial I did for YouTube a few weeks back, and with the exact same setup that you're seeing here today. But to begin, I'm just going to go over to the Fairlight page, and this is where a lot of the audio takes place in DaVinci Resolve. So I already have a voiceover track and a music track. So in my voiceover track, all I'm going to do is go over here and double click on the EQ. And so this is going to control the EQ for the entire track. And this is way more efficient than doing it per clip. As you can see, I have a ton of clips over here, so it would take forever to do it individually. So I'd highly suggest putting all your voiceovers on one track and then doing the EQ all together. But the first thing that I do to start is enable band 1. I usually put this right around 100, maybe a little more if I don't really notice a difference. A lot of what this is just playing the audio and playing with it as you hear it and just seeing what sounds good. But I start with this, and this is generally just called a high pass or a low cut because it's cutting the low frequencies and letting the high frequencies pass through. So that's what I start off with, and then I'll go through and do the rest of these other bands. So my process with these is I'll go ahead and change this one, the type of this track, so I actually get a full adjustment there. So what I do first is I take the Q factor and go all the way up. This is also called width or Q in some other programs. So I'll go all the way up with that. And then really what we want to do here is just sweep the frequencies. And that's really just done by playing through the video, taking the gain of one of these really thin frequencies up. So you can see the Q factor is what controls the width of each of our frequencies here. So I'm going to take it all the way up, boost the gain up almost all the way, and then just use the frequency control right here to just sweep back and forth to listen to any frequencies that I don't want to be hearing in my video. And then what we're going to do after that is just use the gain control to take that out. So it's kind of an opposite way of doing it, but it's generally a lot easier to hear those bad frequencies when you're boosting them a ton than when you're subtracting them. So it gives you a lot more confidence to know that I'm taking out the right frequencies that I want to be. So I'm going to show you how I do this. I'm just going to do it for this voiceover that I have here, and you can see, you can hear kind of what I'm hearing and what I do along the process. So event is done, but I just want to just give you an example of kind of how I plan for events. So I made this header just called tasks. So that one right here, I don't like. It sounds pretty bad. It's kind of got that rumbly sound, which doesn't surprise me because it's still in that kind of low frequency range. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to play and take the gain all the way down. Usually it doesn't sound good if I take the gain completely down. So I'm going to kind of just find a balance of where it sounds good. And then a few for prep, some stuff the day of, and then post after the event, just things that I. So you can hear if I take it all the way down, it sounds really dry because that is a lot of the low frequencies, and I've already taken out even more back here with the low cut. So I'm going to decrease the gain or bring it back up just a little bit, and then maybe adjust the width to be just a little bit wider. Wanted to remember to do basically, and Notion has this really cool feature that I can just type at remind tomorrow or remind on a certain day. And I forgot to earlier, but it also helps to just mute your music track so you can really hear the vocal while you're playing through your video. So a lot of those day of events, I actually just set a reminder for the day of so I know I don't forget them. So that's kind of how I handle a lot of the to-dos. And then that sounds pretty good for our first frequency band. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing for our bands 3 and band 4. And then I'll go through what I do on band 5 and band 6 here in a second. I have a lot of other info in here, like some social content that I wanted to capture while I was there, like my what's in my bag. So if you want to see a lot of the gear that I took, you can check out that video, as well as just some notes that I had down for editing and some of the music options I had. So it's great to just have one page. I can put all the information that I need for this one event on. And then as you can see, find music and inspo, and then some other content ideas for that day are 3 of the tasks that I have under the prep. So I'll start with music. Music is such an integral part of recap videos. It can be overstated. It drives so much of the pace and so much of the energy of the recap videos depending on the event. So I use Artlist for all of my music, and basically what I'll do is just go in there, create a collection for this event and for this year, and then just go through and spend 30 minutes to an hour just looking through music, finding some that I think could work, maybe a few different genres, a few different styles of music that I want to add to this collection. So I think for this one I actually ended up with like 7 or 8 different tracks in that collection that just kind of drove how I wanted to. That sounds pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how that sounds already, but the only last thing that we have to do is our last band, band 6. And this is really personal preference. Some people like to boost it a little bit and some people like to lower it. Generally for my voice, I like to lower it a little bit. For like a woman's voice, it might be a little different. But generally for this one, I'm gonna change the type to this one and take the frequency back and then just bring the gain down. And I always like to do this while I'm listening to the audio. So I'm just gonna pause and listen to what I'm doing here at this higher frequency. Shoot it, and then after the event I'll go back into that and actually pick out which music I think would actually work for the footage that I got. So the second thing that I do after an event is get some inspiration together. This typically just comes from either Vimeo, Instagram, YouTube. Those are the typical ones, but I can also put this on this Notion page and add some inspiration. All right, that's pretty good. Now, it always helps at the end because I definitely don't want to be doing any damage to the audio and actually making it sound worse. And sometimes I feel like I can go in and edit so much that it really ends up sounding worse in the end because obviously we have like 6 bands doing a lot of different things. So I would always definitely listen to your audio and just toggle the EQ on and off, hear a clear before and after, and see if there's anything you need to tweak further on to make sure that you're actually improving the audio that you're editing. And at the bottom, maybe some elements I want to pull from videos that other churches have done, anything like that just will influence how I film this upcoming video. I don't have a ton of content of me talking about. Yeah, I think that actually sounds better. I think that sounds pretty good. The only thing that I noticed is it does sound a little dry. So I will actually tweak a few of these frequencies and maybe bring them back in just a little bit so it doesn't sound so dry about the event while I'm there. But I did want to go through kind of how I did it, my mindset in filming, and some of my equipment setup, stuff like that. So I already did a full camera gear breakdown video on my YouTube channel. You can check that out if you're interested in everything that's in my bag when I go film church events. But for this one, all I used was my Sony a7 IV, which I'm filming. So I think that sounds a lot better actually. So I'm going to leave it how I have it right now. But I do have a few extra tips that really sped up my workflow as I'm doing this for so many videos and a YouTube video a week that I'll show you. So I used audio tracks, and so I'm going to start off and set the low cut to about 100. Do the same with our band 6 over here and just duck out the high end just a little bit. And then I'm going to set the Q factor all the way up on all of our other bands. Make sure these are set to what I like. Kind of balance out the frequencies a little bit to make it easier on myself. And that's about it. So then what I'm going to do is save a preset, create new. This will be like vocal starter 2, since I already have one in there. But then now the real advantage to this is, say I'm in here and I reset my EQ, then once I open up an EQ for a new project, for a new video, all I have to do is click on here, vocal starter 2, and then I can jump right in and start playing my audio, increasing the gain and sweeping my frequencies. So I'm eliminating as much of that like just repetitive work as I possibly can by making a preset. And that has been a huge help in increasing the workflow for some of my videos. But once we have our vocal EQ'd, I have one more tip to help your vocals stand out when you have music behind videos like I do in a lot of these YouTube videos. And that's to cut out some of those frequencies in your music actually to allow your vocal to really stand out in the mix. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. So for this, just like our vocal, I'm going to double click on the equalizer for our music track, and this frequency right here is actually right where I want it. It's about at 1K2, so that's about 1250, and that's pretty much what I like. I'm bringing up the Q factor just a little bit, but I do like to keep it pretty wide for the music, and we'll just duck that out just a little bit like that. So this may be a little hard to hear. I'll need to unmute my music layer, but really what this is doing is just kind of creating a dip out of the music, and that's where our vocal is going to punch through. So that's just going to add a lot of clarity to our voiceover and allow it not to get drowned out so much by our music. And so I'll show you exactly what that sounds like. conservatively and being really intentional with what I shoot. Shot the whole thing handheld. I just love the handheld look. I've used gimbals. I have a glide cam. I don't really use it much anymore just because, one, it's really tough with the wind as opposed to electronic gimbals, which I think do much better in the wind or outdoor environments and stuff like that. And I also think it's way too tough to adjust camera settings on the fly because you're holding your gimbal. So that's pretty subtle, but it is a really easy way to help your voiceover stand out of your mix as compared to your music track. But one final tip that I'll give you is making another preset for this exact effect. So I'll just create a new preset and just call it like cutout music for VO. And that way, again, I'm just streamlining that process so it's as easy as possible to make a little cutout of the music for your voiceover to really punch through. That's all the tips I have today for EQing vocals in your videos. If you have any more questions or any other videos you'd like me to cover when it comes to church video production, let me know. But otherwise, I can't wait to see you in the next video.